Hello there, and welcome to Northern Devon's annual Diversity Festival. And if you've been tuning in this week, you'll know that instead of our usual one day in the summer in Barnstable, this week we've had a series of events going on through the week. And tonight I'm really delighted to be able to be speaking to an old friend of mine from when I used to live in China, in Shanghai and Hong Kong, Fan Popo. But I'd just like to, before we get speaking, I'd just like to let you know that I'm David Chalmers. I'm the chair of North Devon Sunrise, the hosts of the annual Diversity Festival. And we, at the moment, are waiting to hear about our charitable status. And we're hoping that's going to come through in the next couple of weeks. But we are reliant, like most organisations, we rely upon support and funding from for our volunteers and for the work that we do, which is to celebrate diversity, to challenge discrimination, and hopefully change attitudes in our rural communities. And if you want to be able to give a donation of any kind, no matter how small, we have the Aviva Community Fund. And the links of that are on our Facebook page, on our website, on our Twitter, on our Instagram. And as I said, any donation, no matter how small, would be very much appreciated. And I can guarantee that 100% of those donations comes directly through to helping us in our organisation. So, as I said, tonight I'm really excited because I'm able to speak to an old friend of mine, Fan Popo. Popo and myself met back in Shanghai in what is now, it was 2014, so 6 years ago, for Shanghai Pride. And I was involved with helping put on the LGBT plus film festival for Shanghai Pride, and we were able to screen some of Popo's films there. But anyway, so I'm going to introduce you. Popo, welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Good. Even though I can't see you guys, but thanks for watching the live stream.
Yeah, brilliant. No, I couldn't see you there for a minute, and I know that we've had a couple of little hiccups earlier on, so that was great. I'm going to kick off right away with just want to ask you what it was like for you as a young gay man growing up in China.
Well, I want to tell one story that back to a few years ago, a conversation of me with my old brother in Chinese New Year. And we had a debate about what's going on in Russia, since they have the anti-gay propaganda law and teenagers are not allowed to talk about diverse gender information of diverse gender diversity and sexual orientation. And so to him, he think that is reasonable because you don't teach young people anything like that. But I guess we were, so he has been always telling me that he support me of me being gay. But at that time, I told him, you know what, you don't really support me if you're against of giving young people information about sexual orientation, because you are not growing as a gay boy yourself. And this is so unfair because I grew up with almost zero information about sexual orientation and gender diversity. So that made a lot of hardship in my childhood. And I remember I went to the library when I was in middle school, and the only book talked about gay was to totally describe it as a disease and how you can change it. But of course, in China, it was true that before 1997, and it was still criminalized from hooligan law, and until 2001, homosexual was still a disease. So it was not the easiest thing in the world about being a young gay person.
Just a quick question. When was it still classed as a mental illness? Was it 2001?
2001.
Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you. Yeah.
Oh, I finished.
Carry that's what you would say. And so, so it was a difficult period for you as a young man growing up in China.
Yeah, as I said, there was no information about it. That's a big challenge. And when you want to know about yourself, and there is no teachers won't talk about that, and you certainly didn't have a community back to the time I was growing. But I was amazed by the time now that I heard young people, especially who are in big cities, and talk to me, and some of them told me that they had read my book back to 10 years ago, because that person was only like 21. So that means like when he was 11, he already know about, he can already see those information. And also I was a jury for high school student film competition, and but for international schools in Beijing. And so one of the candidates, and she told me, even she didn't win, but she wanted to do internship for me. And afterwards, she just secretly told me, actually, she told me that she came out to me that she's bisexual, and she wanted to be a filmmaker. So I was at one moment I was I regret so much of born in my age, because I didn't know what I'm going to do, and also didn't know about myself, and was not confident enough of being what I feel, and has been a few years self-conflict. But the younger generation, they I certainly see better, more confident identity, and either segmentation or from artistic side, and I'm glad that. But of course, China is a very big country, and it's still very different. I can't say rural area and west side of China.
Where did you grow up? Which part of China?
Well, now it's Jiangsu province. It's on the east coast. So it was even still it was now only 2 hours from Shanghai, but it was still hard for most of the part of the country back to 1990s. But only recently, because of social media and smartphones, make people smarter.
So what got you into filmmaking? How did you sort of could you give us a little bit of a background to how that came about? What inspired you to get into filmmaking?
Yeah, as I said, so I didn't dream of being a filmmaker when I was in high school, even until the last year of my high school, when you have to decide what you want to study in the future in university. If you have if you are lucky enough to get into university, it's still very competitive in China of education. The reason why I choose the film school was because I was very bad at mathematics, and I heard if I go to study art, I don't need to study mathematics in art school. But I certainly didn't have any artistic skills, and then someone told me, you can go to film school because that doesn't request any technology. And I was really passionate about writing, so I tried the writing department of film school, and I got it.
And so your films are known. I mean, when we knew one another back 6 years ago, your films were very much sort of documentary films, sort of challenging the situation in China. Could you give us a little bit of? Is that how you saw your work?
Well, I don't know if you have seen some of those documentaries I made about queer families in China, and
yeah,
back to from 2012 until 2016. Actually, from 2009 to 2016, I was very passionate about it because
yeah,
uh, it was so realistic. Because I remember in 2008, I heard at around that time, I heard so many coming out of stories, and so many of my friends had to deal with their family drama, and when they came out, and certainly almost 90% of the story were very sad, and when they were talking about what materials they can give their parents to see, for example, like at the time it was very famous of the popular of the Brokeback Mountain, and even become a pop culture in China, and they call gay relationship as a 断背, means broke back, and with such an interesting term, how film culture influencing people's daily life. And but somehow, if people only show parents of those films, of course they have wonderful material, but then you get your family, your parents will say, well, they're white people, and so we don't see that in China, then this doesn't belong to our history, or our society can't accept this. And so, and I feel a lot of responsibility. How can I create some materials for in the Chinese society? And in the beginning, it was very idealism, think about, oh, a film can even change the society and change people's life. So that was my the starting point. And so, when I was making those documentaries, but after making 3 of them, and I feel I was so naive. A
yeah,
film certainly won't be able to change the whole world.
yeah,
So I have been very also very passionate about activism itself, because I have many friends, and they are doing amazing job on helping the community with legal help, mental consultant, and also,
yeah,
as you said, Shanghai Pride, how amazing people like Charlene and Dylan
yeah,
and Derek, they have been doing ages working on building up the community, and also do advocacy to people from outside. So I was also very involved with organizing certain activities. So I was a board member of a Beijing LGBT Center, and also helping organizing Beijing Queer Film Festival. So I see
right,
all those activities as sort of activism practice of myself, and also this was read as a way of activism filmmaking. So, but actually, my recent films are mostly fictional shorts. So I'm interested with both. And
yeah,
besides those documentary I mentioned, I also feel it's very important of intersectionality, not to stay in my own box. So I also
yeah,
made films about feminism movement in China, and
yeah,
also topics including transgender, and also one documentary, the only non-LGBT one, was about the earthquake in Sichuan, and
oh,
intersection,
right, yeah,
yeah, and international international communication between China and Japan. But I can see all those practices are because one thing I really believe about communication. And back to the topic I said before, if we can't change the world, what we are creating, I think one thing I still really believe is communication. No matter you can what kind of result it is, when the progress itself is very important. And in the same time, I proudly say I grew up myself in, and every film I made, I learned a lot from my interviewee, from my protagonist.
yeah. When we met I remember when we met in Shanghai, and I asked you, we were screening one of your films in the British Centre at that time as part of Shanghai Pride, the film festival. And I remember asking you, said, how important is this, the festival? And you said, well, this is one of the very few, I mean, I think it was actually, this is the first time my film has been screened in China for a Chinese audience.
Oh, no.
Many of your films at that time had been screened in international festivals. Is that still I mean, I suppose, is that still the case? Are your films, have they been seen more widely in China in the last 6 years, or is it still difficult to see them in China itself?
I think it was misinformation actually. My film has been screened in China for quite many times, but compared with but never being a theoretical release because we don't have a license for it. But rather than that, there is China has many bad law, but fortunately China is also not a country ruled by law. So there's always some loophole, some cracks between those bad regulations. So we can find, even though I can't screen my films in official theater, but there are some place like a gallery or a foreign agency or sometime in a cafe, or there used to be also a quite interesting space in university to allow certain event in the name of World AIDS Day, or or sometimes they could do also even on International Women's Day. They could host a certain event, but those spaces are all keep on being squeezed this year, and many independent film salons has to cancel. And also, as I mentioned, the university also didn't have that much space anymore, and but you know, I can still see a lot of my colleagues are still doing their work by in a guerrilla way, so they can still. If one place they lost, they can still find other places, and there is also sometimes their promotion of the event was delayed, but always you can find a way to post it to some other platform. So there is definitely still on the ground scene going on.
Right. Okay. And it is very much still the underground scene as where things can be seen. And I suppose this brings us to where you are now. I mean, you've recently, how many years is it now you've been living in Berlin?
Almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years. And can you, how first of all, how are you finding living there? Because, you know, I used to live in Berlin in the early 80s.
Yeah. So the reason why I came here, one of the reasons is I feel I'm so tired of the Beijing. Actually, I always think of moving out from Beijing, at least the political environment and the nature environment, and also the price. And I was so disappointed with a lot of things there. But suddenly this idea also of Berlin just pop up, and so I've been here a few times and then have a connection, and I feel the city definitely has an interesting atmosphere on creativity. So I want to try out for a year, and then I feel I like it. So, but also the other reason I want to come to a new environment, also because I want to lift my aesthetic, artistic. How to say, direction, because I've been after doing those documentary for so many years, I see myself have been repeating, and even though I never regret what I did, I think it was important. It was something I'm really proud. But somehow I want to find something new to do, and different ways to contribute to the queer film culture in the Chinese society. So I want to do more fictional and experimental stuff. So before I left Beijing, I shot. So there's the virtual background I set. There was a still picture of one of my movie called The Drum Tower, and we screened it at Chinese Vision Festival in London last
Right.
year, and also this year Queer Asia also from London. They did a
Yeah.
virtual online festival, also screened it. So there was sort of my gift to Beijing, and also a new a statement of mine that what I'm trying to do in the future. So it's
Yeah.
an aesthetic change, but thirdly, and I wanted something to change because I've been working so much on identity politic, and which I'm not a big fan of it. I was always feel very jealous of people who don't doesn't have to limit it in their own box of identity, like even you're Asian, but you can also work on project about Black community
Yeah.
in New York, and if even Iranian director, but directing a film about like Indonesian protagonist. And so I think I want to break all those labels. And but and with this taking with this idea, but somehow I come to Berlin, and coincidentally I pick up the topic of Asian community here, and
Yeah.
first was because something not really nice, and I was got racist insulted for already quite a few times here
Really.
in Berlin. Even though firstly, every time I tell people, people are shocked. They're like, really? Berlin is such a nice place and it's so diverse.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. uh, uh, but shit happens. So it's and also quite intense. And when people didn't trust me, but I literally filmed people doing that, shouting to me and fuck
I.
China, and
Yeah.
or even this COVID thing make people even more aggressive, and
Yeah.
that make me feel, oh wow, I need to do something, but in the same time, oh, I'm traveling from the queer box from the LGBT box into the Asian box, so it's still identity politics, but
Yeah.
with I'm proud to say with more intersectionality, and we have a lot of cooperation with different with people has different identities, and so I enjoy those kind of atmosphere, and
Yeah.
we're not I don't see myself just as a victim, and I did never
Yeah.
see myself like that in the queer term either, so but more feel like we are empowering ourselves, and also helping other people in the community. And here I got a lot of great collaborators within this filmmaking and queer and Asia community.
So you're getting a lot. You find that the community in Berlin is really supportive of you.
Yeah.
And this the because I saw the posting of those incidents that happened when you were I think there's one where you were abused on the underground, and yet you were the one that almost got into trouble because you filmed this person and didn't ask their permission. Was that what I sort of understood how it is in Germany?
Yeah.
And how is it being away from China? Do you miss China? Do you intend to be returning at some point?
I miss the food there. Honestly, Berlin doesn't have a great food scene, because I think people here have so many different ways to entertain, to satisfy themselves. I don't want to tell what it's about, so they don't care food that much. And also, I feel the Chinese or Asian community here, not compared with London or Paris, they are they're newer and also younger. They didn't feel, oh, we have to eat Asian food, or
Right.
there are some new restaurants and looks very hipster. But then I tried and I said, oh, this is not real Chinese food, and they sell 10 euros one bowl. And rather to have a have a falafel next door and it's 3 euro and also very satisfied. So this is something very very interesting how food as a culture connected to your identity, but but Berlin has really good Vietnamese food. I want to say the Vietnamese food are better than
Vietnamese.
Vietnamese food.
Yeah. So when you were mentioning about the different Asian groups, so you're sort of feeling yourself more a part of the general sort of Asian community.
Yeah. So when here I go to a Vietnamese market, I feel very much like in at home. You can't imagine if I go to a Vietnamese market in Beijing, I feel home. No, that's exotic. So identity is also floating itself, and it's changing because of the contact. But rather than that, I didn't really miss China that much because I can still connect it with my friends through social media and from all those technology, and also previous years, the first 2 years, I managed to fly back to China regularly 2 or 3 times a year, and even last year was 4 times. I feel very sorry for the global warming, but this really helped me to keep updated about what's going on there, because it changed so fast, and even after a few months, sometimes when I was in China, sometimes I could be traveling for a few months outside of China also, or doesn't go back to Beijing, and I already see all new shopping mall open. There is some new technology, and so last time when I was in China, and I feel very very interesting. There was once I was sitting in a restaurant and waiting for the waitress come to order, and for already like 15 minutes, nobody come to me. So I had to ask them, hey, I want to order, I want to have a noodle. And then she told me, we don't have table service. You have to scan the QR code on the table and order from your cell phone. And then so this is almost everywhere. I would say 80% of restaurants in China are doing this now. And so I was so clumsy. I scanned the code and tried quite a long time to order, and then then I was waiting. The food still hasn't come to me. So I had to ask them. So why it didn't come to me? So she said, you didn't press this button. So it was another 15 minutes. I was starving to death. And then at that time, it's not only because I was hungry. Also, that make me feel I was so far away from this country. And even just 2 years away from it, even I travel back to there quite frequently, and I still manage to have myself look like an outsider. And also when I was in the subway, and I see people was talking, so they were trying to buy the subway ticket, underground ticket. So they were talking to the machine and saying, Pudong Airport, and then they will give you a code, and you scan the code and pay, and then got a ticket. And then I was just feel, oh, I know nothing about this country. That kind of feeling. Well, probably you won't feel that if you are away from UK for 2 months. So
not as much, because I mean, I've lived, as I lived in China for about in Hong Kong for about 10 years, but the pace of China and this sort of development and technology, absolutely what you're saying. I used to, you know, it's hard to sort of explain to people just how, you know, how just things would just change like that. And your description there of something which doesn't exist at all here. Got people going in and or, you know, using their iPhones or whatever to order the food. I mean, maybe it does in one or two restaurants, but you know, something like that now is the norm in China. And it was, yeah. And do you, so that is obviously, when was the last time you were there in China?
Actually, right before COVID. So I was there December. The story I told you happened in December of last year.
Right, right. And have you, I know you've been in contact online with people, but how is COVID sort of impacting on the LGBT community? We were both on a call, I think, a few weeks ago where there were some people talking about that. I think it would be interesting for people to, if you have any insight into what's sort of happening.
Yeah, I just talked to my colleague at the Beijing LGBT Center. So because the screening of Queer Asia in London, they are fundraising for different organizations. So I asked the director of Beijing LGBT Center, do they need help? And they said, oh my God, we need it. We didn't have any income because of COVID. They could not do fundraising. And they could, but they still need to pay their rent, and the rent in Beijing had been increased crazily, and without any rent control, and the landlord could kick you out anytime if you didn't have a resource. So this is certainly a big challenge for organizations like that, because right a few years ago, China also had a regulation that against sort of similar with the foreign agency law foreign agency law in Asia, you know, in Russia, and so they stopped NGO receiving money from foreign foundations.
Right.
So, that already created such a big challenge. So you can imagine, so the most unstable community and facing even more unstable, the worst situation of unstable time, and how those plus and how unstable, how challengeable it was. I actually last summer also did a cooking event here in Berlin, and me and my friend, we cooked and screened a film, and also raised a few hundreds of euro for Beijing LGBT Center. But there's all tiny little bit contribution to it. So this time the screening in London we raised about 100 pounds for minority transfer to them. So money is one side, but the other side, also heard a lot of stories that because of COVID, some people had to stay with their family for intensive time. So they have to dealing with each other, and some of them also forced to come out, or some of them come out before and didn't have a chance to talk about it. But then now they keep on bringing up this topic and become ugly. So I heard stories like that, and usually I will forward the information of PFLAG to them. You know, they are doing a lot of work helping families with the family members getting along with each other. And thirdly, also I know I see from my friends and internet that those who are HIV positive, and because they need the regular supply of medical help, but because when the time during the COVID, especially people who are in Hubei province, the center of the pandemic, and all the hospitals are occupied because by COVID patient. So this is more situation for any people with any other disease, and those people who had AIDS, and if they want to ask for help, and also a lot of them are in closet about their saturation and about their disease. But I saw one article about how an NGO in Wuhan managed to find those people and deliver the medicine they want. And so it
Right.
seems very inspiring. And as I said, even though how bad the situation is, there are still those activists and workers and volunteers doing their amazing job.
And I heard about, because people having to go to bars and give details and be recorded and stuff, that there was some concern over that. Is that something else that you're hearing? That people are still a little bit reluctant to be handing over, to be saying they're going into a gay bar and giving over all that information, or is that
No.
you don't see that as a problem?
I thought that was in Korean. That was news happens in Korean.
So but so it's not happening in China at all. You don't think that there is...
I don't think that applies to China, because I see there is a gay bar opens, and I didn't see that was at least I didn't hear about that. I don't think that was discussed. People don't need to, but some of the bars, they reject foreigners if you're not Chinese looking, and they might. So there was also, how to say, revenge racist. So sadly, a friend of mine tried to bring her boyfriend, who is a European, a white person, and they were rejected at the door. So that, but you don't need to. You didn't. Entering bar registration system didn't apply to China, but for a lot of local business, because they didn't get any government funding or any help like that. So a lot of local business had to close their doors permanently, and including one of our partner, a lovely bar called Anchor in Beijing, and we always do have a opening party of Beijing Queer Film Festival, and so they had to close. They had to stop their business because they didn't survive from this disaster. So we will also need to find a new partner for the festival, and also the community had lost one space.
Is it getting easier for film directors, artists like yourself to make films, and to perform in China? What sort of direction is it going in the moment?
No, most of my filmmakers friends are suffering so much of jobless. Some also hasn't been shooting for quite a few months, and and also that you don't know when you can book for the next project, because it doesn't seem not even some project like slowly resuming, but still doesn't see what's the plan, how many of them will get. And cinemas are still not opened yet in China. And it has been discussed such a long time, and one of the highest level of one of the biggest film group, and who own a lot of cinema, their vice president committed suicide, jumped from the building. So all those tragedies are happening. So it's not specifically because of people who are LGBT, but LGBTs are all in different has different job. They could be filmmakers, they could be cleaner, they could be manager, a project manager, they could be a business owner, they could be a migrant worker, and all different kinds of jobs of people had been influenced, certainly. But at the same time, one thing. I feel kind of bad saying that, but since the mainstream industry had been destroyed so badly, and I don't know if there would be a revival of independent films, because actually the mainstream industry had been a very big harm to the independent filmmaking. That was my feeling that before I left Beijing, and back to many years ago, when people didn't have that much job in the mainstream industry, a lot of them would
this film, the mainstream film industry you're talking about.
mainstream film industry, the commercial film industry.
Yeah.
So many people would opt to do work with you on low budget for the independent films. But now, because everybody, but slowly, because of the industry was doing so well, and everybody has to achieve had to achieve. Most of people were chasing money, and I don't judge about that. I don't as personally, everybody, I understand everybody need to survive. But now maybe I see it could be an opportunity that when people didn't have those opportunities, maybe could be a chance for small budget films and independent filmmaking, and more concentrated about aesthetic, and what can we do under low budget or no budget, and how can we find our creativity. And certainly, because I want to emphasize, because queer films in China is totally under the frame of independent films, because it has been a taboo topic in the mainstream industry. And when a lot of filmmakers, other filmmakers, either no matter they are queer or straight or non-queer, a lot of them talk with me about making queer films, but because I could not find money, and in the end they gave up. Like 90% of people who had this idea would give up in the end. But since now no films can find funding, maybe they could even say, oh, I will do the most taboo topic. So it could be for topics like queer films.
So you don't think so? Queer films, LGBT films in China, not so much come under censorship. It's more the funding, which is the more difficult aspect of being able to make those films.
Of course, it's related because of censorship, and they could not get funding. So imagine if they could pass the censorship. For example, my film got a theatrical release, and I was certainly attracted quite a lot of audience. And if even one of them pay $1 to me, I will be able to invest into my next film. But unfortunately, the system doesn't exist.
Yeah. I've got a question here. We have a question. When Popo was filming Mama Rainbow, was it what he expected to find, or was he surprised by anything?
Oh, so we have questions from the audience, or
yeah.
Okay. I now feel there is an audience. There's not only two of us chatting.
It's not just me.
The biggest challenge with diverse of gender and diversity of gender and geography, because China is such a big country. I want to try now to only featuring people from urban area and also East Coast and big cities. This on this term we didn't achieve it, because in the end most of the families I interviewed are still from big cities, and we had one mother committed to us. She's from Inner Mongolia, and but in the end her another son of her is against this idea, so we didn't manage. But if you have a chance to see Papa Rainbow, then you will see we have parents, we have family from really small town, and also someone from rural area.
So the rural. When did you make Papa Rainbow?
Probably was 2016.
2016. Okay, so it's after, because Mama Rainbow was, what year was that?
2012.
2000 and
2012.
2012. Yeah, because that was the one that was being screened, I think, at the Shanghai LGBT film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but we managed to have families of 3 lesbian and 3 gay men. In Poland, we also see families with transgender kids. So that's also what we're really proud of. And the biggest surprise was, so we planned already in advance of 2 versions. And the full version is 80 minutes, and the short version you saw was 28 minutes. The reason why the online version is shorter, firstly, because usually online audience are not patient enough to see a full length of documentary. Secondly, also we are concerning some of the families. They might not be not willing to be on to be seen online, because this is most spread out place. And so so when we were searching protagonist and the interviewee, we promised that if you don't want to, we can also cut off your footage from the online version if you don't want to be shown online.
Right.
So when I find those 6 families, and at least in the beginning, 2 of them told me, okay, I would love to talk about it and would love to be in your film, but I don't want to be on the online version. So as I say, it's no problem. But in the progress of editing, and since we have so much interesting communication, really become friends and build up this trust, they also had been seeing what happened to other families, what kind of challenge they have. So both of these 2 families, they also texted me, so Popo, you know what, fuck it, and please put my footage wherever you want. So you have my permission to use anything you want. So I feel really, really, really touching. And so therefore, when Mama Rainbow was taken down from online in China, so it was another narrative. So when the website told me your contents, your documentary is not suitable for people to view, I was so mad. I was saying, you're not insulting me only, you're also insulting those mothers who gave me their image and their story. You're telling me that they are not they're pervert. So this is not okay. So that was also basically the moment I feel very important to fight against all those censorship.
And when did that happen? When was that? Did that happen? That censorship that was taken down?
So I found out I find out Mama Rainbow was taken down from all over the internet in China in 2014.
2014.
In 2014, but perhaps that was already taken down early on, and then in 2015. So I was searching a way to find myself justice.
Yeah, I should add that Mama Rainbow was actually available to watch on our website over the last few weeks, I think, and so people will have been able to have seen that. So thank you. Just on that sort of, when we were there in China back in 2014, there was a lot of talk about that China might embrace same-sex marriage. Do you think that is something that is likely to happen? You know, if you remember the whole thing around the family and how important the family is, and that actually same-sex marriage was a way of sort of being able to reinforce that. But I haven't, 6 years on, and I don't know. I'm just asking you: is it still something which people are thinking it could happen?
I personally, I don't think it will happen. So can be very, I'm very frankly about it. I don't think it will happen in the near
Okay.
future, but somehow I can't, I'm only judging it from my, my sense, my censure,
Yeah.
my sense.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
but China is a country that we don't have, personally, I don't have right even to vote for my president or whatever politician.
You don't anymore because you're living in Berlin. You don't have that.
No, even before that, because there was only all those people are voted by those people's representative, which doesn't represent the people at all. So and all the decision was made by the party. So we certainly don't have the way uh, to be part of to
Yeah.
give influence to the decision maker.
Yeah.
That's what I want to say. It is very uncertain. So I don't think it will be happens. Or if it happens, it's not decision. It's not the democracy progress, and it's not going through advocacy, and they people didn't have enough knowledge about it. With all those censorship, with also those information, and with all the great firewall, and I don't think people even let's say, who knows? Because as I said, we can't give influence to this decision maker. Maybe some of them one day feel, oh, I love gays, and so let's legalize sex marriage. Who knows? There is a one maybe the 0.1% possibility that suddenly happens, but certainly people won't be ready for that because the
No.
society itself
Okay.
still have a lot of misunderstanding and misinformation. Therefore, I think this is a topic, but I think it's also not a topic, not the most urgent issues in society. The most important is that freedom of speech, and
Freedom of speech. Yeah.
people can deliver the information, and people can get the information they want, they need, and then that will be the beginning point for almost everything.
Right. And at the moment, I mean, you'll be living in a time when, even 6 years ago, I think that the sort of relations between the world and China were better. We're hearing, Trump and others using sort of, anti-China rhetoric. I mean, is that impacting upon you, do you think, as living in Europe? You mentioned that you'd had some sort of racism, but do you feel that there is this sort of, we're certainly picking up on there's much more sort of anti-Chinese things being written about and spoken about in our own sort of politics?
I'm not sure if it's related to Trump, because here people there is it's not popular to call it Chinese virus or something like that. But even without those politicians, you can still see people how narrow-minded they are, and they but certainly there's a bad system itself, because you don't see opportunities of different communities see each other, and for example, white German, they only educated about all their culture, and I have talked with a few people of German Asian German friend who grew up here, but still they have so much experience and being ignored of their culture, and so they assume that when you talk about Germany, that means blonde and drinking beer, and so all those stereotype things. And secondly, also, I was surprised those so-called left-wing media also sometimes can also give so much misinformation. For example, the famous cover of Die Spiegel, and it's this somehow a liberal media, but they had a cover of a person wearing a yellow raincoat and on the cover saying coronavirus made in China, and
Really?
there was
So that was on the front cover of Der Spiegel, was it?
yeah.
Yeah. See, I wasn't aware of that. We don't. I mean,
So
it's
people,
probably. I know this is international, but as a British audience, I certainly wasn't aware of that.
people keep on, but somehow you still have people who, of course, I think there is still need space to talk about what is racist and what is improper. I keep on hearing people telling me, oh, just the cover was awful, but the article inside was some very interesting article inside. And I did read a few pieces, and it was, of course, the quality of the writing itself is not awful, but when I was called Corona in the underground, and at that time I realized actually a lot of people, they won't read the article. They will only see the cover, and people get the idea that, well, this virus was made in China, and suddenly I see this person. I can call him name calling him, and it doesn't matter, and he's a most vulnerable person I can bully. If I have a bad day, I can just release myself, my anger on people like this. And this seems to be a globalized phenomenon. And fortunately now we also see a lot of hopes. For example, Black Lives Matter, and I see also there is a group of people in the USA, and had funded this organization called Chinese for Black Lives Matter. So they also go on the street and have allies together with ethical minority and also sexual minority. So they have banners hanging of the Asian community to support the Black community, and because and they also have Asian and transgender together to go on street and protest against racial and gender discrimination. Those are beautiful moments, because it's extremely important, because what the authority want to see, and what the right-wing people want to see, that they want to see those marginalized community would be fighting each other, and rather than be friendly with each other. But what those people are doing totally give a different voice, and give also other people a good model what to practice of intersectionality.
We have another question that is, where do you think the prejudice towards LGBT people comes from? Is it cultural, historical, political, or something else? I suppose they're talking about China. So where does the prejudice towards LGBT people come from in China?
I mean, prejudice.
The prejudice, the thing that it's something bad.
Okay. I think in China, it's hard to say. So there was, the history of China has been it's quite rich about homoerotic and sisterhood and brotherhood and like gay-ish stories, lesbian-ish stories. I would say one thing, all those labels are imported from West.
From the West,
Yeah, so somehow those ideas of homosexual being perverted also along with those labels. And secondly, I think, yeah, for example, like a hooligan law of China was actually adopted from Soviet Union. So it's quite similar with the one applied in Russia. So those are also even China want to be away from the influence of Western influence, but this law itself, fortunately, was delayed in 1997, and so the Western influence is part of it, and as you can see, even worse in Africa, and a lot of countries are still criminalized homosexual because of the colony history.
Did you see, we had an interview like this with Jason Jones from Trinidad earlier in the week, and he talked about the legacy of sort of, it was Britain and the colonial laws that actually criminalized, and it was exactly, it's just interesting when you were saying there from the West, he was saying that there was this sort of influence that come in from elsewhere, and that they, you know, it's still there in these laws. In the 70 countries around the world where it's still illegal to be gay, 50% of them are from the UK, from our law. Yeah, no, I think we have a lot to answer for.
but China itself, in the history, also the Confucius culture is care very much about very heteronormativity type of family, and not only has to be a heterosexual relationship, but also have a kids and taking on the family name. These values against homosexual, especially even also against hetero couples who doesn't want to have children. And I think I think thirdly, also communism party themselves, they don't like anything different, so they always want to all the time apply the same thing. So when you are different, and when you have different voice, this is something that I don't like. It's slightly minor, not exactly toward homosexual, but minor homophobia.
Yeah, I don't think it's just confined to the Communist Party in China. I think there are certain political parties in power around the world who have that same. I'm aware of the time, and this has been fantastic, and I could carry on all evening, but I'm aware that our time is, we are coming up to almost our hour, and I just wanted to ask you, just at the, you're now in Berlin. What are you doing? I know people will be wanting to ask this. What's next? Where do you see yourself going? What sort of films are you working on in the future, or right at the moment, to be honest?
I'm working on some short movies. I actually had a shooting of a short movie just 2 weeks ago, and next Monday I'm meeting my editor. But this project is still to be announced. And I also talk with. I'm always interested in discovering new stuff to do. So I'm working on a video art installation now. I'm always interested with multiple media of art, and also theater. There is also a possibility for me to direct a theater play next year. And also I'm still, I haven't give out my position as a curator. So I'm curating a theory of China and the Middle Eastern intercultural screening series. It will be a dialogue format, like every time we screen a few short movies from one Chinese director and then one Middle Eastern director, because as I said, we don't see different those marginalized communities have a conversation and have dialogue with each other. So we want us to see each other, and also we want us to be seen. And meanwhile, I also have a few other short movies already made, but in progress of distribution. And So I had to sign with a platform called Gaga Olala. So they're based in Taiwan. They're going to release my film later on this year. And please, if you see those opportunities, please support them and also support artists like me.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a lot that's going on. And do you intend at the moment to still stay in Berlin? I mean, I suppose the other question I have to you is, we've got a large Chinese community here in the UK, who I'm sure would, maybe some are listening in today, but do you have any plans to come over here to the UK to visit, to screen your films here?
Yeah, I supposed to go to London in the beginning of May for a festival. Yeah, but they didn't. They postponed to September, I think.
Okay.
If that do happen, I will probably go. And I have friends who teach in Nottingham University and Manchester University. So almost every year I travel there to give workshops.
Okay, good, excellent. Well, look, I mean, you're always welcome down here in Devon. We're a little bit further away from London. We're about four hours from London, but it is beautiful, as you can see behind me. Much more of a sort of a rural area, but I'm sure that we would be, you would be very, very welcome here. And we have quite a large Chinese community down here as well, with Exeter University and in Plymouth, two cities in our area of the world. Exeter University has a lot of Chinese students studying there. But no, do let us know next time you're over here in the UK. As I said, you're welcome always to come and visit us down here, and I'll let you know next time I'm over in Berlin. But look, it's been really fascinating and insightful, and I've really enjoyed sort of catching up with you. And this could have gone on, I think, for a lot longer. But I know that your time is busy. So thank you again, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Okay, thank you, David, and thanks everybody for being here. And see you next time. Okay, bye bye.
Bye bye.